Hi, this is Patrick Conroy, and now we're going to get into part two of family law, custody. Okay, who gets custody? There are a lot of factors to consider, and it's hard. I always encourage people to understand that just because the marriage is over and that relationship is over, the couple, if they have children, they're going to need to continue having a relationship of some sort for the rest of their lives, because their children is related to both of them, and they're both important to the child, unless there is actual abuse occurring. In Louisiana, there's the debate between what the age of the child and whether, especially young children should be with their mother. Now, they really do try to figure out what's the best interest of the child. And they look at things like who has the best ability to care for the child. Meaning, if somebody is working 16 hours a day, that might be a factor. The religion of the parent, only if there's some belief that that religion might harm the child, more like a cult. Or if one parent refuses to let the other have any say in what religion the child is exposed to. If it's a special needs child, which parent is best able to meet those needs? If one parent is looking at conducting immoral conduct, that may play a role. That's often where they get really nasty. And they will say things like, my ex is having a premarital sexual affair with such and such, that's immoral, the child is going to affect the children. Lots of anger can come out in the custody battle when the anger is about other things. Continuity, you don't want to disrupt the child's life too much. And the potential contact with the child's extended family. Is one person going to, cut off the grandparents or not? Joint custody gives each parent the right to take active right in childbearing. That doesn't mean that the child is with each 50% of the time. It's that each have a voice in the big decisions. So the parents have to discuss and agree on education, what sort of religion, and all the major decisions affecting the child. This is why you want to continue having a relationship of some amicable sort with the ex, because there are a lot of decisions that come up. Healthcare, usually, whoever has the child is going to have the presumption of making an emergency healthcare decision. But there might be other things that come up. In Louisiana, the presumption is for joint custody by law. And really, Louisiana the judge does not want to get involved in making the decision. They're going to try to force the parents to come to something that they both agree on. If they come to the court without an agreement, the judge is going to send them to mediation so that they come up with an agreement. They're often very reluctant to get involved in this part, but they will if they need to. Now, enforcement of custody orders, this can be really tricky. One parent takes the child to another jurisdiction where they have a house. Then, you might have your court order and your custody arrangement with the court in Louisiana, but now the child's in Texas, and you have to get the Texas authorities involved. It's very hard. There is work on a Uniform Child Custody Jurisdiction Act, and Uniform Child Custody Enforcement Act, but this would need to be adopted by each state. The goal is to avoid jurisdictional competition, promote cooperation with other state courts, and ensure that the litigation takes place where the child and family have the closest connection. Not where someone's just taken the child and they've been there 2 months. Child support. There's basically a formula that they use. And they will look at the number of children that the person has to support, where they're already doing some things like providing health insurance, or paying tuition for a school, things like that. Then they look at the net income of each parent. And the special medical or educational needs of the child. With the income, that there's usually a formula. You have to give this percentage of your income to the raising of your children. Sometimes what they do is they say, if the child was living with the father, this is the standard of care that they would have. So they need to have the same standard of care when they're with their mother. So that way they don't hate going to their mother's house because everything's a struggle there. There's continuity. And that's where you can get some of the big child custody arrangements. And so this is not applying just to an ex-spouse. This is whoever you have a child with. Often you have to go back to court, maybe multiple times, to modify the support. You can't just decide unilaterally, hey, that kid's 18, I'm going to cut off child support. You have to go back into court. And sometimes the court will look at things and be like, you're college educated and your parents paid for it. You're paying for the college education of your other children. Why shouldn't you pay for the college expenses for this child as well? So it would go on past their 18th birthday. If the parents are getting along, usually that would be written into the agreement early on. Sometimes, one parent might lose their job and not be able to pay child support, or all of a sudden be making a lot more money. That's another reason to go back to court. If the cost of supporting the child has substantially changed, inflation, the child has developed special needs, all those are reasons to go back to court and have the child support modified. Failure to pay. Unfortunately, this is a huge problem in this country, where the non-custodial parent refuses to pay the other parent. Now, legally, not much can be done to them beyond driver's license revoked, wages garnished. But what you can't do is deny the visitation of that other parent. That's really because it's not so much that they have a right to see their child, is that the child has a right to see their parent, even if they're a jerk. And you would be amazed at the lengths that people will go to avoid paying child support. Their wages are being garnished. So what do? Find another job and don't tell anybody where they're working. Move to another state where it's harder. When it would just be easier just to pay the child support for the child that they have. But as I said, a lot of times the anger between the parents is taken out in things like child support and visitation. And it's just, if you really want to know a way to screw up your kid, that's the way. I have known people who put 7-year-olds on the witness stand. And it's like, no, don't do that to your child. They will not recover from that quickly. Visitation. Every parent possesses a constitutional right to share companionship of child. Now, the court may limit this based on the parent's conduct with the child, usually. It's like, no, we're not going to look at what they're doing elsewhere. But if, we're worried about their conduct with the child. So then the visitation may be confined to a specific area or supervised. And a parent might be denied visitation for a period of time. There are a lot of people with substance abuse issues and mental health issues. And it's okay to say, yes, we want them to go visit their child, but we want somebody there to make sure that they're sober, to make sure that they don't do anything that would endanger the child. So as a punishment, it's just meant to make sure that everything works. If it doesn't, maybe we'll deny visitation for a while you get your act together. Reproductive law. At one time it was hard to prove paternity. I didn't do it. Well, me. How do you bring in all sorts of witnesses to say, hey, she was only sleeping with him? Now, you can do a test and find out who the father is. Adoption, there are a lot of laws. And this is for good reason. When a child is placed with the state is giving, is handing that child over to somebody, you really want to make sure that they put giving that child to somebody who's not going to harm the child. So there are a lot of laws. Often counseling and waiting periods are required, evaluation and trial periods, lots of hoops to jump through. And this is because we've made mistakes in the past where we did not check things out properly. But this is also why often some people decide it's much easier to go adopt a child from somewhere else where there aren't as many rules and then bring them back to this country. Fertility and surrogacy. This is all sort of, there are a lot of people, surrogacy is much more common than many people realize for whatever reason. It can be the ova from the woman and the sperm from the man. She just doesn't want to carry it or is unable to proceed with the pregnancy. So they might have a surrogate for that. Or it could be between people of the same genders. So they might be getting reproduction help. Some of it is going to be really, dependent on how the new abortion laws play out. Because like when you do in vitro fertilization, does life begin when the sperm and the ova meet? In which case it would be in a petri dish? Because a lot of times people will harvest many eggs from the woman, and they might have like 10 frozen embryos, and they implant them over time, hoping, one or two of them will make. What happens to the others? Are they considered to be people? We'll see how the laws play out. And, sperm donors are often anonymous. But, there are a lot of, 23andMe companies where the child could find out who the sperm donor was. Where does a child, the sperm donor signs away all parental rights. But what happens when the child wants to make a claim against sperm donor's estate? Will they be able to do that? Those are all things that really haven't come into play yet, but could. Okay, good luck with the chapter. Good luck with your relationships and your families. Try to avoid a lawyer that, if the marriage doesn't work, try to avoid a lawyer that tries to turn it into a nasty divorce. Thank you.